Hey everyone, welcome back. Alright, I'm here to settle an age-old debate that I still get asked to this day, and on whether my stance has changed, as well as why some good sources say one thing and I say another. This is about Laetum's 5th evolution perk. We have two crowns here. There are people that swear up and down about non-crit Laetum, and there are people that swear by crit Laetum. If you've seen my original video, you probably know I am part of the Crit Laetum crew. I'm also going to lead this by saying there is no correct choice, because both work. Crit Laetum just has more useful quirks if you want to take advantage of them. There are a couple of extremely important things to outline this with. Standardized builds for ease of use will pin the non-crit Laetum at higher DPS than the crit Laetum. But if you use galvanized crosshairs, then crit Laetum surpasses non-crit Laetum. This happens at about 80% CC for the breakpoint, which requires galvanized crosshairs. But that ignores a lot of unusual issues in the game, as well as completely ignoring the conditional advantages Crit Laetum brings to the table. If you're using Laetum to kill trash fodder, it does not matter if you go crit or not. I repeat, trash fodder does not care which one you use. The exception is if you are one of those weird endurance runners, then you should be picking crit or non-crit Laetum based off the buffs your Warframe can bring, especially if it's a more crit chance or crit damage buffs, but this video isn't for you. It's for the general player base, because Laetum laughs at all trash fodder below 1k. Because Laetum destroys all trash fodder for the average steel path player, the only thing that really matters is if it can kill Acolytes and X my units instantly. Here is the most important thing. Acolytes ignore Devouring Attrition completely. Remember how I said in my original video that Devouring and Overwhelming are rather close to each other, that depending on the build and use, one build could be better than the other? But that the best builds without Xata would always favor Overwhelming slightly, since it is possible to build for 100% plus crit and still have a full Overwhelming stacks. Well yeah, against Acolytes, that 2000% damage buff from Devouring is completely nullified. So now your crit Laetum is doing roughly 10 times higher damage than your non-crit Laetum. Try it. I even have two clips here showcasing the difference in TTK. This is the same reason why Fellarx feels like shit against Acolytes, because its main strength comes from the 2000% damage perks. While Xata still works with Fellarx non-Incarnon to get 441 times damage scaling instead of 21 times, allowing Fellarx to crutch on Xata and still get good Acolyte TTK, this is not true for Laetum. Xata no longer double dips the 2000% multiplier in Incarnon mode, and Fellarx is the only Incarnon we DPS with outside of Incarnon mode that has this perk. For the rest of the Incarnon perks, I still run the same ones. Perk 2 is still minus recoil, so I can get steady headshots to charge my Incarnon mode as fast as possible. The plus 20% fire rate pales in comparison to anemic agility, and the option to run arcane velocity, since we're actually critting. Movement speed while aiming is extremely niche. For Perk 3, ammo efficiency doesn't apply to Incarnon mode and was patched not long after release so that it would only affect Laetum's normal magazine and not other weapons in your loadout. Holster reload is also useless, since exiting Incarnon mode automatically reloads your entire magazine. Lethal rearmament is the natural choice, since you need headshots anyways to charge Incarnon meter, and a plus 90% reload speed will drastically speed up the transformation animation. With zero recoil, it's super easy to charge Incarnon meter, so I would arguably still just stay with Caput Mortem for the 4th perk. Not only because Crit Laetum uses galvanized crosshairs, but that this will let you deal with Acolytes even easier. I know non-crit Laetum normally uses elemental excess, which is basically useless outside of intentionally lowering your crit chance. Now, we have a fat 50% headshot damage buff against enemies that matter. So, what does this mean? At the cost of mod slots requiring you to build for crit, the Crit Laetum without aiming down sights performs identical to non-crit Laetum at earlier steel path, destroying everything just as you'd expect with no playstyle changes required. But for anything that must absolutely die, be it that one heavy unit Xmas over there, or an Acolyte, you can ADS to activate galvanized crosshairs and blow that Xmas unit up instantly. Or more importantly, kill that Acolyte way faster than a non-crit Laetum could ever dream of doing. What happens now that you need to mod crit on Laetum? This is my generic Corrosive Laetum. There were several Laetum builds I originally showcased in my Laetum video, but this is the one I'd say is best suited for generic everyday steel path. If you want a full breakdown on all the other Laetum setups, as well as possible frame synergies, feel free to check out the video cards at the top right. If you don't want to use Bane, well, feel free to drop that too, since it is a Laetum and I am assuming you aren't going to Endurance. I don't use Prime Fulmination anymore for base steel path, since the Laetum has a habit of overkilling enemies even with increased blast radius, and wasting shots. Therefore I run Anemic Agility for the quality of life and fire rate you'd expect a non-crit Laetum to have for a feel. But more importantly, I now have the freedom and flexibility to source buffs from my Laetum externally. I can run Arcane Velocity on my frame if I want even more fire rate, since, you know, now my Laetum actually crits often. I can even drop Prime Pistol Gambit and run Arcane Avenger on a health tanking build. I'll be constantly shotted and have 45% flat crit added to Laetum, which is the same as how much a basic crit mod gives it. Now I can free up a slot again if I want to actually run Prime Fulmination. Even Shieldgate builds could go Combat Discipline Arcane Avenger too, since Shieldgate builds don't want to take health damage from enemies. But don't even get me started on, say, Frost Laetum builds, like I originally showcased at the top right, with the massive Biting Frost conditional augment buffing Crit Laetum to hell and back far higher than any non-crit Laetum could ever hope for. You'd be even in oranges and reds. At the end of the day, the reason why I pick Crit Laetum is not because it's 1% stronger. Well, the cap is actually a bit larger than that, but the reason is because Crit Laetum has much more quality of life customization to bring to the table. Yes, deciding how to actually build it can be more complicated, but I can kill Acolytes faster, I can get fire rate from Arcanes, I can build crit from Arcanes. Hell, you can even get fire rate buffs from Amalgam Firax body count. I have 100% uptime in my plus 1200% base damage buffs, instead of getting plus 2000% final damage half the time. Don't lie, I know you've definitely noticed the occasional non-Xmas heavy unit on a non-crit Laetum build at base steel path tank a hit because you failed the 50% chance for 2000% final damage. It's annoying. The solution to this is spray more, but Crit Laetum will always only have to shoot that non-Xmas heavy unit once, and it will always die. You also no longer have to care if a random hero joins your pub team and buffs your non-crit Laetum with Covenants, but that's extremely rare anyways. It's up to you to decide if it's even worth swapping, or if you're genuinely wondering why I always use Crit Laetum. Just do keep in mind though, Lich's sisters and Archons are affected by the 2000% final damage bonus. These are my reasons, and only you can decide if it's worth it. Cheers. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you all the information out as early as possible, like I've been doing with Duviri. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.